Welcome everyone to day 13 of our 40 days. In the last week I've been trying to give you a perspective of the consciousness space within you and what plays in there. Before we go to the next week, I want you to have a good grounding in this one. In the knowledge, in the practices. You exist in a field of infinite consciousness. That's extremely important to note. Never lose awareness that the field, that consciousness field, that place where thought arises, from where emotions are generated, desires and intentions are created. That space from where you feel vitality. That space is infinite. There can be no end to your knowledge, to your thought power, to your love, to your peace, to your vitality. Not the physical vitality, that which underlies the physical. That vital energy that we call prana. There's no end to it. That consciousness that lies within you that's so vast, that contains all knowledge, has every thought in it, has all goodness, all love, all peace, all power. That consciousness is you. But it's veiled. It's in a contracted form. When you put a veil over something, you cannot see clearly. If it's a thin veil, you might be able to see through a little bit. If it's a thick veil, you can't see anything. And I said in my talk, we have different veils. We have thick veils and we have thin veils. So if you remove a thick veil, you may see a thin veil. And there are different shades of thinness. So the consciousness has veiled itself with thin veils, thicker veils, out of joy, ananda. And that joy never leaves it, even though it's veiled. It may think it cannot access it, but it can't. That's why the Christ said, emphatically, be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. He says, think perfection, because your inner being is perfect. The Vedas say, aham brahmasmi, that the I that you are feeling, that aham that you are feeling, is nothing but the divine. Aham brahmasmi. Shivoham. My I is divine. It's of Shiva. So that individuality that you feel is because of veils. The Supreme Consciousness has been veiled, and it gives the false sense of power. That is what we call ego. It's a false sense of power. It's where we are claiming that it's our power, individual power, when in truth it's the infinite veiling itself. And it is the infinite that is in this experience. And we are the infinite now veiled, so we cannot know ourselves inside. It's difficult if the veil is thick. if we are so into material consciousness with a thick veil of materialism, we can't perceive the divine at all. So when we are in root chakra awareness, or even sacral chakra awareness, at high pleasure center, we become caught up in the gross plane with a gross veil. And as we go to navel chakra, as the consciousness opens up to that vital power of the core, we begin to feel now the fire of divinity. You stand next to a fire and you can feel that there's something different there. Instead of the gross planes of water and earth, you now begin to feel fire. The veil becomes a little thinner. And as you go deeper in exploration of that fire consciousness, fire power, you begin to feel what is behind the fire emotion. And you come to a more subtle plane. And as you begin to explore emotions and refine them, you begin to go to another space. You begin to feel that the space in which you are expressing is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. You come into throat consciousness, space awareness comes. Spatial consciousness. And as you go deeper and deeper there, you go into the mind and you come into the mental plane. And here the veil is thin. And when you remove that thin veil, you begin to experience your divinity. The duality of existence turns into oneness. That's why we have a bindu point here. That's where the duality begins to come to a point and rises to the crown, supreme consciousness. So you have been veiled for a play that is a play of joy. So, the only way out in this play is by sticking to seeing, the seer. The seer, the observer. That is what you need to center on as you move into play, not the ego. The seer that witnesses the ego. That witness is called sakshi. So in meditation, the practice should be just observing, not to be caught in the thought construct, emotional patterns, physicality, primal drives. Don't be caught. The moment you're caught, you lose your divinity. So you have an individual self in display that's false, and you have a collective self. But the reality is, the false self is undergoing change as your perception changes, as your consciousness opens up. So you are in a play of evolving consciousness. And there is no way that you're going to stay forever in ignorance. Because it is not you who determines what happens in the play. It is the divine that is opening up itself in the play. It veils itself, and then it has this power, this generative power, to unveil. So whilst the unveiling is happening, you begin to feel that you are changing. And even if you try to stop the unveiling, life is going to challenge you to lift the veil. That's how life challenged the prodigal son in the Jesus story. When you want to do your own thing, life is going to challenge you until you do its thing, until you align to life's purpose. So in all your play of possession and power and being territorial and manipulating and exploiting and feeling that you have the better of it, you don't. Life is going to respond in so many ways. And you can see it with dictators across the world. You can see it in the dictatorship that we see in various places, in the families and the communities. The universe responds to actions, and we call that a karmic play. So though we are given the freedom to act, and sometimes we use it, so we abuse it. And of course, you can't get away. No one escapes the karmic law. Even if you feel that you're hidden, you're seen. Even when you think no one knows, the divine knows. So it's better to stick to truth and goodness. So the eyes need to be kept on the ego, not when you're sitting only, but in every aspect of life, because the consciousness is constantly expressing itself. So in every expression, you need to do your sadhana. So this is not your devotional activity for the week. Every moment of your life is. But it's not so easy to think that all of this is a play, and that self that I feel and this power that I feel is false. If you tell people that, they will think that you're crazy. So the world is not ready to accept that. But those who are more conscious will. When they realize more and more that we don't control the things around us, the divine does. We can only control what is within us. So don't try to change the world. Change yourself first. And then you will realize why the world is as it is. When someone asked that question to Buddha, why don't you change the village? You're so great. He says, you go to every house and ask what they want most. Nobody wanted the truth. Nobody wanted God. That's what the world is like today. So don't try to be inspired by those who are around you. You have to be inspired by those who have been liberated. The true heroes of life. They have always been my heroes. The ones who sought liberation and became liberated. Those are my heroes. Those are the ones whose praises I sing. Those are the ones who touch the infinite. So the goal is to observe the story of the prodigal son within us, the story of the Mahabharata within us, the story of Ramayana within our being. All the stories of good over evil, of the battle between good and evil, truth and untruth, all those stories are to be internalized. All those deities that we pray to outside, they need to be internalized. They reflect our deeper aspirations and qualities, but they are externalized. Deities are really powers within, but they're externalized. When the veil is heavy, we think that they are outside. When the veil is heavy, we think God is outside. God is within. That which sees through your eyes, smells with your nose, touches with your hands, walks with your feet, that is the divine. Namostu anantaya sahasramurtaye. I bow to the infinite one, of infinite forms. Sahasrapada kshishirorubhave. All the limbs are of you. Sahasranamne purushaya shashvate. All the names are yours. You are eternal. Sahasra koti yugadharine nama. And you support all these cosmic ages. To you I bow. Not to the deity in the temple. It's externalized. It's individualized. It's personalized. No, to the infinite one. So we need to seek the divine within. Until and unless you do, you will never be at peace. So this is a piece of advice to you. Your mind will never rest until it centers itself in the divine. Your desires will never stop until you taste that nectar of the divine inside of you. Your restlessness will never stop until you uncover the divine inside of you. So this takes us into our next week, and we look at the emotional center. That very powerful and important place on the journey. It features in all our lives. Enhances our meditations or disturbs it. Bring joy to our lives or pain. Destroys our health or heals us. Brings us closer to God or further. That place of all nourishment, all love, all excitement, all passion, all pain. It's the heart center. So I look forward to a week of exploration of the emotional landscape with you. Promises to be very exciting. Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed morning, everyone. Namaskar.